Hey guys, it's the Elsa Kurt Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and we are talking today with AK Dozanti, and she is going to be talking to us all about her Lifesavers Wellness program that she has going on. She is a former deputy sheriff, and she has got some really, really amazing stuff to share with us today. Super excited. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am great. How are you?
I am terrific. I am super, super, super excited about this because this is one of the things that is so paramount of importance to me as I do this show, as I do this program. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was bring things like you and your program and what you do to the forefront to help our first responders because, they face challenges that are uncommon that the average person has absolutely no idea. And I'm about as close as you can get as a spouse. And there's still so much that I don't know and don't understand and couldn't possibly, so thank you for coming on the show and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And thank you for, having this platform to be able to talk about these things.
Thank you. Now, tell me a little bit about your career. You're now a retired or former deputy sheriff. Tell me what that experience was like.
Well, I actually started my law enforcement career at 19 years old. I did some undercover stuff as an auxiliary, and then I went to the academy when I was 20. I got hired on with the sheriff's office as a special deputy with the contingency that I would be hired on, but they wanted me to finish my degree. So I did that. I graduated with my degree on Saturday, started on Monday morning with the sheriff's office, and I did that for several years, and I really dove in. I was a couple hours away from my family. And so it was kind of all I had. And so I just really dove right in. I didn't know it, but I had come into the job with some unresolved traumas. And when I was about 7 years in, I believe, 7 or 8 years, I went from being Officer of the Year in February of 2015. And by September, I was completely burned out. I mean, I was done. I was hypervigilant. I was paranoid. There were things going on in our society that really were heavy on my heart. And I lived alone at the time. And it was very overwhelming. So I pivoted. I became a criminal court victim advocate for about 5 years. And during that time, I went back and got my master's in criminology and victimology, which is essentially trauma. And I also took a 10-month yoga teacher training and became a yoga instructor. And a lot of that was just for my own healing. And I never dreamed that when I left that position, because I tried to stay on in law enforcement as a special deputy a little bit here and there and pick up some auxiliary positions. But I never dreamed that when I left that position and I just took time off, that all of this would come to me. It was almost like a strike of lightning. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to take all of this because I had felt like I had no direction. And then all of a sudden I went, duh. Take all of it and funnel it back to the people that you care most about, your first responders, your brothers and sisters, and serve in a different way. And so that's what I did.
That's amazing. And yeah, what a great epiphany moment when it all comes together like that, right? Like it's just like the heavens open and it's like, ah.
It was honestly so wild. I was like, oh my gosh, I am in alignment with the universe for the first time in my life. And it just, I mean, and that probably sounds a little woo woo to some of your listeners, but it really just, it was like the cage came off. Mm-hmm. I just felt like, okay, I get it now. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Incredible journey to start so young, 19. I mean, I think of myself at 19. I mean, I was a dipshit. I really was. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I was just a doofy kid. And, I can't imagine going into a career that is so jam-packed with so much. I mean, so much stimuli and activity and high levels of adrenaline and all of the things. And being a female in a technically male driven field, did that make you feel even more driven to be a super achiever, do you think, or not related at all?
Kind of interesting because when I came on at 19, I was doing undercover online investigations. And so I was very valued as a young female because I could be a decoy. I could get on the phone with these guys. So I don't know that I really felt the need to work harder to prove myself because I came in feeling like, okay, I have something to bring to the table. But again, I was super young. And some of the things that we were doing and seeing, some of these victims were just a couple of years younger than me. I mean, we were looking into human trafficking type stuff and it just I don't think I fully grasped it at the time because how can a 19-year-old fully understand all of that stuff? But I think that the trauma of it, like as a byproduct, kind of led me to try to dissociate and bury and keep moving forward in a fast-paced way to avoid dealing with those things. So not necessarily being a female in the field, but rather as a byproduct of the things that I was experiencing.
Sure. And in that kind of environment and what you're seeing and dealing with on a, constant basis, that leaves scars on your heart, and you have to keep covering that. And just like you said, keep moving forward, keep doing the job and not addressing any of those issues. And something I saw on your website that, I thought was really, really valid and so true is that you spend your career serving others, focusing on others, putting all of your effort and energy and attention on them, and you're neglecting your own self-care. And that I think is, such a huge component to the job and how it affects everyone, because it's the same really across the board. That's what you do. And it's like a matter of course. How, in your opinion, your departments in general, how are they addressing those stressors, those issues, or were they addressing them at all? Was everybody expected to just fend for themselves?
I at the time, so I left full time in 2015, and it really was not talked about. We had a job to do, and when you were at work, you were at work, and if you couldn't hack it, you needed to leave. And I think that we have come a long way since then. But when I went through the academy, it was '08. And I think the only thing that they told us was, hey, you're going to see some stuff. So you're going to have to compartmentalize. And I've really examined that. I've looked very closely at that in the last couple of years. And what I've come to realize is compartmentalizing will save your life on a shift. Being able to put certain things in a box on shift will get you through that shift. But it is not a lifestyle. You cannot just say, okay, I'm just going to shove all of my chronic stress and trauma into my left arm and it can stay there, right? We're one human. We have one human experience. It's a whole experience. And so we can't just shut it down. We think we can, and we try to, but it creeps up and leaks out in other areas of our life.
Yeah, that's the biggest mistake probably in the whole compartmentalizing, right? Because that's a term we used all along. It was like one of the first terms that I learned from my husband as I became part of this lifestyle. And that was a huge conversation talking about compartmentalization and the positives of that, the necessity for it, like you said. But the mistake is that they forget that there is a point where you actually have to open up those compartments, open up those drawers, and let those things out in hopefully a constructive way. And what, like you said, what most do is they just keep stuffing things in those compartments and locking those drawers and never opening them. And of course, what happens, you explode in one way or another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we are so, we're trained to constantly be aware of everybody else around us. We're expected to constantly be assessing and evaluating everyone else around us. And then we're like, well, I don't have time to look in the mirror. Okay.
Right. And the expectation from law enforcement, first responders, is so unnaturally, unrealistically high. You are not allowed to make a mistake. You can't be human. You're not allowed. It's not, in the eyes of the public. And, so that's an added, the level of pressure and stress is beyond imagination for most people who are willing to take the time to imagine it or try. Tell me a little bit about, you talk about the burnout that you were feeling. Did you recognize it as that early on, or was it just this big moment where you were just done?
There was a point where I was forced to recognize it. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because I went from, like I said, being officer of the year to, later on in that year, and this is embarrassing, but I was showing up to work without my duty belt. I was rolling in, screeching in the parking lot at 1 minute till. I was, my job performance was suffering so bad and my attitude sucked. And I think a lot of people could kind of see the way that it was brought to my attention wasn't great. I got yelled at in the squad room in front of everybody, which just added shame. And I was like, wow, thanks for being super helpful. And so that added to it. But I think what the ultimate moment for me, and I can laugh about it now, but the ultimate moment for me was in my living room at 3 a.m. I didn't even have the energy to turn the TV on. And I had completely let my chores in my house go. And I was eating cereal out of a gravy boat. And I went, this is not me. Something's got to give. What am I doing with my life? I am most of the time pretty squared away at work. And then I come home and I'm falling apart. And at that point, I realized something needed to shift. And when I left, I actually took about a month off. And I realized at that point that I also had adrenal fatigue. And depression and PTS and all the things. But I slept for about 18 hours a day for a month straight because my body was
shut down.
My nervous system was wrecked. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, that solidified for me that I had made the right decision.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it saddens me and it angers me that you and any first responder is even allowed to get to that point. And I think that is the thing that needs to change. And of course, I'm stating the obvious when I say that, we all know that is what needs to happen. You guys need real-time help processing, dealing, managing. And that's essentially, now you go into your program. I want to kind of switch into going into your program. That's kind of what you do. Do you actually go into academies and police departments and help train them for that? For those types of things?
I go into different police departments, fire departments. I haven't hit up any academies yet. And I'll be honest, it's really hard for me to find the curriculum to prepare them for something they haven't experienced yet. Sure. But I do agency trainings, and it's interesting because there's always different levels of burnout. There's different levels of being able to pay attention or see the value in what I'm even talking about. People that have been on for 5 years are like, why am I sitting here? I want to be go chasing bad guys. I'm like, yeah, I get it. People that have been on for 30 years and the people that you would expect to slough it off and say, it's not the way we do things. Those are the people that call me up afterwards or stop me on the way out and say, thank you. I mean, those are the ones that have come up to me afterwards with tears in their eyes. And to me, those are the ones, they have so much built up and they're like, they feel it. And so, if I can catch them early, great. I don't know that they're going to understand the value of it, but man, those veterans, they get it. They've felt the effects. And so, if I can hit them on all levels, that's great. But
absolutely. I know, yeah, I agree. Like the most ideal, like just kind of thinking it through, like the most ideal is to catch them early, but you're right. It's hard because they're not even fathoming that they could have a problem. They're in the, adrenaline mode of all of it, the excitement of it and the climb and all of those things. It's so wrapped around that. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. The ones that have been on for a long time have seen a lot of things and bottled a lot of things for many years. I can easily imagine the impact of what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about, or tell the audience really a little about exactly what you do.
So I do my agency trainings, and then I also do one-on-one coaching, and I'm developing another program that I can talk about in a few minutes. But what I really am doing is teaching first responders how to have self-awareness and then what to do with it when you get there. We spend a lot of time avoiding and powering through. And so what I'm doing, and this is might be a little bit too clinical, but it's a bottom-up approach. So we have our survival brain at our brainstem, and then we go into our emotional brain, and then we go into our critical thinking brain. And trauma and chronic stress lives in our body. So I've been able to take my yoga practices, breath work, meditations, physiology, neurobiology, and everything I know about all of that, and create this approach to where we can start to connect to our body. Because I think so many first responders are like, I don't even want to know if I even plug into what my body's feeling. I'm going to be scared of what I find out. So really connecting, and then being able to offload some of that trauma and stress without necessarily even having to talk out every single detail. And I think that is huge, because being able to talk it out is very effective. But when you're working with trauma, and we'll just call it what it is, even though first responders are like, no, trauma's for victims. Well, not necessarily. So, but when you're working with trauma, it's hard to find the words. It's hard to come up with a sentence to explain what you were feeling, or whatever the case is. And so being able to work that through and out of your body is very important. And then we kind of continue to move up. And part of the program is being able to decide who you are outside of that uniform. That's so huge, because so many people are like, I am the thin blue line. And I'm like, yes, you are, but you're a human first. Mm-hmm. You were a human when you came onto this earth. You're a human when you leave this earth. And you have to learn how to be human in between.
That's truly, I think, one of the many challenges that they face, identify as a police officer, or a first responder. And you're so right. And another thing I pulled off your website there, you said thriving on duty, and they're not thriving off duty, because they're never off duty. And really they never are, right? They're off the clock, but they're never off duty, because you're always, and we joke about it as family members. We joke about never being able to face the door, when we go into a restaurant, sitting in restaurants, we're not allowed to do that. They're always scanning the crowd, and never, like, they look at you for a minute as you're talking, but their eyes are also tracking and they're not even aware that it's part of who they are. So to be able to get them to separate a little bit is pretty amazing. Are they resistant when they come in? When they come in for the one-on-one? Well, probably when you do the training in the PDs, they're probably a little resistant, I would imagine, because they're so used to being the way that they are, right?
I've had some that were like so ready for it. And then I've had some, I think it was a couple months ago, I was training a room full of SWAT guys in our state seed. Like, they are the SWAT guys, right? And I'm not going to lie, I was intimidated. I was like, oh, I'm going to have these guys doing yoga and meditation and, and they ate it up. And then what I find is some of the smaller departments, they're a lot of times have more old school mentalities. And I've had some resistance. I certainly have. But it's funny because even when I have the resistance that's out loud or pretty overt, all of the evaluations come back as excellent. And I think that a lot of it is the ego, the show, the charade that we put on, that I don't need this, I'm a tough guy, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You do what you got to do. If you have to wear that armor of being a tough guy to feel like you're accepted within the group, that's fine. But if as long as the evaluation comes back and I know that they got some value out of that, that's good enough for me.
That's amazing. Are you a one-woman show? Do you have like a team that works with you for you, or you're a one-woman show?
Yep. I mean, my dogs could be my assistants, but that's about it. I mean, amazing. I have a great support system, but it is just me. I'm probably going to be hiring an assistant very soon, because this thing kind of blew up overnight. But yeah, it's just me right now.
That's incredible. And this is a program, this is a system that, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, that you created from the ground up, essentially, or is this something that this is you from the ground up? That's pretty amazing. That's incredible.
Yes.
Because you're addressing so much.
Yeah. When I got that little stroke of genius or whatever it was, and obviously it's been a work in progress since, but initially I thought, there are so many people out there saving lives and putting their lives on the back burner. And so what better way to honor them than to call it lifesaver wellness? It's for them. It's for the lifesavers. I'm not the lifesaver. It's for them. But yeah, I've been able to really weave together a lot of different disciplines and techniques and things. And then throughout that, I've done some really organic one-on-one coaching where I just kind of see where it takes me. Right. And then I did enough of that where I was able to come up with a framework, because I was able to see what the needs were and then prioritize them. And that's how I came up with my combat method, which is to connect, offload, motivate, build, align, and then transition into self-coaching, which I think is incredible, because if I do say so myself, but I really think that's such an important component, because as first responders, we don't want to feel like we're reliant on somebody else. So I'm handing over everything I've got for them to be able to then take the reins. And that, I think, has allowed people to really connect with it more, because they know that they're going to be able to do it on their own at some point.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit too, to be able to see that part of the journey, to know that you will be able to do this on your own. This is basically helping you gain the tools and the resources to be able to help yourself through that, which I think is huge. It's a great end game, really. And I would imagine, as I'm listening to it, I would imagine like your credibility level has to be like way, way up here. I don't want to reach beyond the screen, but it is beyond the screen, because you've walked the walk, so you're not just talking the talk, you've been where they are. So that alone, I would imagine that's got to, put the credibility level up, to the highest level there, and calm them too. Like, oh, I'm not speaking to someone, because I think that's part of the problem when they are, go for therapy. How am I going to talk to somebody who cannot relate to my experiences? It's like telling somebody the plot of a movie that you saw. People will sit there, and as sympathetic as they can be, it's the empathy, I think, is huge. And you, of course, have that because you've been there. You know exactly how all of it feels, what it looks like, and most importantly, how to get out of that, which I think is a huge benefit.
Yeah. And I can't speak to the credibility. That's, for whoever's viewing the situation. But I can tell you, especially with my one-on-one clients, being able to, in a session, or, it's intense. Like, we do like daily check-ins. And so just being able to say, hey, that sounds like something very similar to what I went through. And if you want to hear about it, I can share, because it's about them. I don't want to constantly throw my own story in there. But if it would help them, and they're open to it, just the fact that they know that I can relate, because there is no substitute for having lived it. Even if you've been a first responder, if you've never experienced that level of burnout, or never felt like you're going to crash and burn, then you still may not even fully relate. So most of my clients that come on are experiencing very similar things to what I experienced. And it makes me feel better, because I know that I know the way out and I can get them there. And if I'm fully honest, I'm still doing a lot of my own inner work. And so there are times where I'm like, whew, that's a little triggering, but I'm able to work through it. And to me, my uncomfort level is so worth it if I can help them work through their stuff too. So it's an interesting journey, but
I love it. And
thrilled and honored to do it.
I can see that your love for the work shines right through, like your passion for it. And I think that, I think people feel that and see that, when they work with you. I would imagine there's just all heart there. And I think that's so cool and so needed in this field. People with heart and understanding and all of those things. So I think it's incredible what you're doing. Are you, can I ask what state you're in? Is it okay to ask that?
I'm in Ohio.
Okay. So right now, I would imagine, especially being a more or less one-woman show, are you just focused in on your state? Are you going national at all? Is any of this online, or how can they work with you?
Yeah. So the one-on-one coaching, I have clients all over the US. And right now I've trained, I've done some like webinars and stuff out of like Florida and other states, but my curriculum has actually been approved by the Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission, which is our regulating authority for all the academies and continuing ed hours and all of that stuff. So that has kind of kept me pretty busy. And but I'm actually going this month down to Baton Rouge to teach at their or to give a speech at their state police conference. I've got some things coming up in Illinois, so I'm starting to branch out. But I'm open to wherever this thing takes me. So yeah, but if somebody wanted to work with me, all they would have to do is hop on my website and submit just a little something and I can, then go from there.
Very cool. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the website is lifesaverwellness.com, correct?
Yes,
Lifesaver
ma'am.
Wellness. Okay, perfect. Yes. So we'll put that at the bottom of the screen too throughout so people can see that. And I love that. That's amazing to me. And when did you actually start this? How long have you been doing this program?
Almost so a year and like 2 weeks ago.
Wow, this has really exploded, right?
Yeah,
Did you
it
see this
really
in
kind
your
of has.
wildest dreams?
No, not at all. It started out in a different direction. I wanted to develop an app, and I did do that. But now the app is exclusive for my one-on-one clients. And then once I released my self-paced program, which will be on the website, hopefully within the next month or so, anybody who does that program will also have access to the app as well.
That is awesome. Oh my goodness. Yes. And I think this is just going to keep growing and evolving. And I'm just glad I get to say, I knew you when. I knew you when. Hey, I know her. We're TikTok friends,
Oh gosh. Well, let's hope. I'm kind of letting the pavers come out in front of me and I can just take the steps. And, I'm honestly, at the beginning of the year, I was very cognizant of what was happening. And I thought I need to take it slow so that this thing doesn't grow out from underneath me. So I have been very mindful of the steps that I've taken, but I'm just thrilled and honored to be doing it, really.
Well, we're thrilled and blessed to have you doing it because it makes an impact. It's changing and bettering lives of our first responders. And, and not only does that help them on their job, it helps them in their personal life. And I think that's so interconnected. If you are at peace and whole in your personal life and with yourself, that can only positively impact your job performance. So it's just this, perfect marriage and balance that you're helping them create. And I think it's so huge. I don't want you to grow faster than you're ready to grow, but I really do want to see this everywhere. I want this to be like mandatory for, all law enforcement agencies. So, no pressure or anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, and in the state of Ohio, we've actually done a very good job in the last couple of years of bringing on government offices of, law enforcement recruitment, first responder wellness. And I've worked in and around those folks. And I think that the efforts we're at the forefront of this, bringing wellness to first responders, and the efforts are there. And it's just kind of waiting for everybody to be ready to accept it. It's got to be a mindset shift. But the good news is that we're moving there. We're moving in that direction. And the great news is when it hits, I think it's going to be a quantum shift. I think things are going to change big time. And, maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe it's silly to think that, but I would rather have hope for it than not. So
I call it, we're manifesting it. We're manifesting this to happen, right? We're creating the process for this to happen. And I agree with you. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my heart. I do think that this is the future, and it's happening right now. And it's all positive, good things. And that's, as you well know, that is something we need desperately in these crazy, crazy times. We need positivity. We need things that are going to make us have hope again for everything. And for us in the first responder family world, this gives a lot of hope. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, guys, lifesaverwellness.com. Get over to that website. It is packed full of really great, useful information, how you can get a hold of AK, and it is a great program. So get involved, get interested, and check it out. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome to talk to you and just, share the message and talk to somebody, like-minded, and I think that there's slowly becoming more of us. So, just if we can get the word out, then maybe people will start leaning our direction a little bit too. So I
We'll get them
appreciate the
there.
opportunity.
We'll get them there. Absolutely. With people like you on board doing what you do. Absolutely. I have absolute faith in this. So thank you again, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show today. We will see you again next week. Take care. Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsakurt.com.